جزاك الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I wanted to start out with my spiritual mentor Muhammad Iqbal, and just a line from his poetry. He said, "Khidne keh bhi diya la ilaha to kya hasil, dilo nigah musalman nahi to kuch bhi nahi." That even if your intellect submits to the will of Allah and says La ilaha illallah, it doesn't matter until your eyes and your hearts follow through. So we've talked about theoretical concepts, since yesterday. That's great. Alhamdulillah, I think most people here will understand at least or have some idea of how to theoretically conceptualize a human being and psychopathology. But right now we want to discuss how can we put that into practice? How can we utilize that, and what are some of the challenges? So I'm going to start out with a question. I would request the professionals here to please keep your response to 2 minutes, inshallah, and please, I apologize if I'm making something that may be disrespectful here. But question I have for Dr. Ilham and Dr. Khalili. Dr. Khalili also, because I'm from Khalil Center and his name is Khalili, there's a primordial connection already here. And so I wanted to ask, in the U.S., one of the problems that we face is we discriminate against Muslims sometimes ourselves. So if we have to look for a mechanic, people say, don't go to a Muslim because, he's not good or he'll rip you off. Go to somebody who's not a Muslim. So you two practice primarily in a Muslim country. So when you take something theoretical, Islamic, and people don't have the knowledge of it and they think that psychology belongs to the West, and you want to put it into practice, do you encounter any challenges? And if you do, what are those challenges that you have encountered?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's a very pertinent question because in the culture which I am working, there are plenty of hurdles. Access to psychiatric and psychiatric services is not an easy job. There are some traditional problems. There are some social stigma attached and some conventional beliefs which makes the people away from the clinics. For instance, like they think that the mental illness is because of the evil eyes or because of the magic or because of some other unseen things. Then they should be treated by the traditional healers because the traditional healers are very expert in this regard. Sometimes they are using the method which can be where they punish the individuals or the patient as well. And some are very brutal methods. Anyhow, in this environment, you need to have some sort of discussion and explanation to the community. And also you need to take the traditional healers on board. You need to give respect to them, and you can say that your work, you are doing the same work, but it should be systematic. It should be according to the norms, according to the human rights and the law of the land. Then if we could take these things, then I think that will make the things much better. And then that is the initial thing. Second, there are differences in approaches, in Islamic approaches. Then I presume we can take the moderate view, the moderate way to approach and to get the authentic sources, which is, and our work should be grounded in that Islamic teaching which is related to the authentic sources. These are some hurdles. We have some published work on it, and my background, you won't mind, is because I was trained in this experimental type of environment. Then usually I'm looking for some empirical or experimental or evidence-based. Then there are some evidences that there are some hurdles in our society.
تكلم عربي ولا إنجليزي؟ طيب تكلم عربي أحسن. From my heart. تجربة العلاج النفسي بالنسبة لي كانت تجربة جديدة وفريدة. فدخلت على العلاج النفسي وأنا أحمل معي مفاهيم الإسلامية صراحة، إنه إني أستوعب استيعاب متجاوز وكيف أدفع العلم الغربي دفع نوعي كواليتيتيف
Yes,
dimension.
she said that her experience in psychotherapy made her to look into the Islamic perspective and how can she advance even the Western science and change the perspective of some of the concepts in it.
Yeah, and give a qualitative push for the therapy,
Yeah.
even in the West. So it is كان مراحل.
Yeah, she does it in the stages,
Yeah.
phases.
يعني يمكن 20 سنة or 18 سنة.
20 years she's been working on
Same
this.
therapist, because I have to يعني I have my own model. First كنت بعمل psychological map عشان أشوف يعني أنا بالنسبة لي الإنسان this is إنسان قدامي Muslim عنده the same, we share the same beliefs and like that, but he has a psychological now barriers, he has emotional blocks, he has negative things, negative thoughts. He came to tell me he has اكتئاب إنه عنده
depression.
كده أيوة أو depression. So when I begin المدخل كان هو علم النفس الغربي. I have access, I have toolkit. Yeah. But after that,
she said that the first things she would do with them, she used a Western frame of reference with them in the beginning.
But when I conceptualize my case, I find myself إنه the question and the interview make the patient aware and ready for Islamic faith solution, you know. This is, I don't know how to do it, like it is about reorienting, reframing, reattributing, from attribute to your work and my boss and كده وأين الله أين الله بعدين
Where's this God? What is God?
أيوة.
The patient will be questioning what is God, yes.
Yeah. خلاص.
You know, while we're on that, I know Hakeem Arshad. Oh, you wanted, Dr. Rashid wanted to make a comment, please.
Just briefly, we were working in the UK with a model of the self very similar to Ilham's since the 1980s, and probably 95% of my patients are not Muslim, but I use the same model. It's just that the vocabulary I would use would be different, and there's never been a problem because it's the haq. It makes sense to people, and it's just about how you frame it. The Islamic understanding of the self is what's true. It fits everybody.
Now, I wanted to ask a quick follow-up, if you don't mind, Dr. Rashid, maybe to you first, then to Hakeem I'll go. You know, in psychology, when we graduate, they say you stick to a theoretical orientation, psychodynamic or humanistic or whatever you want to be. You know, people say, okay, you can apply that in therapy and it doesn't matter how you are. But if you want to apply Islamic principle, how important is your own deen? The fact how close you are to that principle, how much do you firmly believe in that? How much role does that play? Does the person, I mean, because if it doesn't play a big role, then any non-Muslim can probably take Islamic psychology and apply it. Is that possible, do you think? Yeah.
I think we all agree that the most essential ingredient in good therapy is the state of heart of the therapist. And that's it. It's 50%, 75% of good therapy. So in that sense, yes, being close to the deen is absolutely crucial. There are maybe non-Muslims who actually in their fitra are, you know, in that state. But yes, that is the most important thing. And you know, the models and the other knowledge we have from Islam help frame things, direct the therapy, but the active ingredient is going to be the state of heart of the therapist, I think.
Hakeem, would you like to comment on that?
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I would agree totally with what Dr. Skinner had to say. And I've seen so many times people who go into practice as therapists who say to me, this has been an amazing experience because I am the one that's being healed. I am the one that's learning in this process. I am the one whose heart's being changed, and I'm learning. That's not everyone, but that should be one of the goals. My teacher in Pakistan, he said, don't do this work if you think you're going to help people. It's you that needs the healing, and everyone that comes to you, if you make use of it, will be someone to help you in that process. So it's not a little romantic ideal, it's a reality. That's what I'd say.
So, I wanted to ask Dr. Murder a question as well, because he, your background being in transpersonal psychology and Sufism, I mean, if I'm a, say, cognitive behavioral oriented person, it might be easier for me to adapt some of the things and apply. But coming from something that is often seen as very abstract, what's the process of going from that abstract theoretical to practice?
Yes.
How do you go, can you guide us, like maybe your thought process step by step? How do you go, maybe with an example, to something that's more practical that the therapists and psychologists can do in the session?
Yes, first of all, we are in contact with suffering people, with sufferance, so I can make no difference, religion difference, any difference. My attitude before the suffering person must be the same, because all human beings, they carry, we are going to see this afternoon, the same essential fitri constitution. So our as therapeutics, we don't have to make tabligh announcing Islam, but through meta-communicative, through our hals, not kal, not words, but through our hals, we could have with the person, with the suffering person, a kind of synchronization. I work a lot with dream work, and I had a very spectacular dream. A lady who is not, she's Islamic, from Islamic faith, but she doesn't practice. And she was in a very difficult situation with her husband. She's neglected, and she couldn't divorce because she had a child, and she fell in love. She fell in love, and she asked me, what should I do? She was meaning an extramarital relation with the person. Of course, I have to be, my heart says, you know what you mean. But I said, well, there are some rules in our psychic structure. If we are against these rules, we could lose something, and maybe the character of your dreams would change. Then she came, the next session, in an amazing situation. She said, Dr. Murder, I did a dream. I was in Dubai. But by the way, she didn't go with the other man. I was in Dubai. I was walking on a field. I saw a free land, and suddenly a light came from this land. Nur. We call this Nur Tejellisi. In dreams, you have emanation of Nur. Nur is divine light. It's something else. And you should see her astonishment. All these are subtle states. We are going to talk this afternoon. And then the dream continues. Nearby was a house, and I went to this house. I saw it was a Turkish bath. I went to the Turkish bath. There were a lot of people who were washing there. And I said, what's going on here? The old lady said, oh, my daughter, to see the Nur you have seen, we have to wash ourselves here. So this is tezkiye nefs, cleanness of the nefs, without saying, through the dreams.
Jazakallah khair. I don't want this to be a straight question answer between me and the. So did anyone have a thought or a question they wanted, specific question they wanted to ask as you've heard all of them speak? Was there something? If anybody has a question, yes, brother. I want to be a walking moderator here. Talk show host.
Thank you for all. My name is Dr. Ali Tuhami. I'm clinical psychologist. I'm working in Hamad Medical Corporation Mental Health Hospital as a clinical psychologist. My question is, I came across some experience from Muslims and non-Muslim patients. Some of them, even Muslims, they have such disorders like addiction and homosexual behavior. From the first, when he said that don't treat me with Islamic approach. I know this is haram, I know this is forbidden, but how can I deal with this or those type of patients?
Okay, so the question I believe is that if somebody comes with a very hard amount of distress and something that may be even contradicting with your faith, right? Practically, how do you treat that? So we're talking about not theoretically, but practically. So Dr. Rashid, if you want to maybe take that. Oh, here, of course.
I pull the short straw.
Yeah.
Two different types of cases. With the homosexual question, I think I would see this. Things have changed very recently in the UK, but in the past, when accepting somebody wants to change, and that's to be celebrated. It's a blessing. We have to accept that in these cases, the nafs have been bent by experiences in the past. So we can see that in Ghazali's terms, where the forces in the hawa. And we can diagnose that. And it's a bit like training an animal, like a hawk. We train the nafs or hawa, the forces in the hawa, to serve us, but within their fitra. The hawk serves their master, catches the animal for us, but it's acting still within its fitra. We can train animals in a way like Pavlov did, which are completely out of their fitra. And this can happen to human beings. So we can understand that, and we can apply remedies that can possibly correct it. But always in a therapeutic relationship in which there's acceptance and love for the person, because they've come to us with a problem which is not their fault. We can also look, because sometimes these are difficult things to treat depending how far back the distortion occurs. And the Shariat also, I think, is there in phases. So if a person really can't help drinking, for instance, or something else, to say, well, at least don't say it's okay. To do it in private rather than public. And to relieve some of the guilt about a behaviour that the person can't help. With alcohol, we know there are other sort of remedies for getting rid of addiction, like if you're able to abstain for 40 days, then it considerably weakens the desire, and that gives people hope. It's not that they're deeming something impossible if made for 40 days. So there are things with alcohol and other types of addiction we can bring in. So that would be my approach.
Okay. Yeah, Hakeem, how do you look at these issues? I mean, what if somebody comes to you for a pure nafsani issue, like a behavioral inclination, they have some addiction, like I'm addicted to my phone, it's right next to my heart right now. If it goes somewhere else, I would be like in a lot of anxiety and withdrawal symptoms. So is there a pill that you can give from a homeopathic perspective?
Well, yeah, in fact, that is one of the strategies I use is homeopathic remedies, and if I have a chance, I'd like to just underline the value of homeopathic medicine in terms of changing character, emotional states, mental states, whatever you want to call it. And the success I've seen for the past, like I say, for over 40 years, I've seen people with all sorts of addictions. Part of what I do in my work is I try to enable the person. One of the questions I have always is, do you know why you're addicted? What is the reason you do this? And to begin to have them explore that. And to help them understand that most real addictions are offenses to their own principles. And then to work at them becoming more connected with themselves, and then as a result of that, with their principles. Recognizing that in their fitra, this aberration is not a natural thing. So it's always a question of gentleness, accepting them for what they are, supporting them and being there for them even if they fall back. And to explain to them, well, part of healing is falling back. And then getting back on your feet and slowly moving towards something. Now, more connection in the self with any person means that they will have more authenticity with themselves and with Allah. And that's something that I work on with somatic work, is being more present at all times, not as an exercise, but as an ongoing sort of organic development of being present. And the next piece that's really important in terms of addiction is the harmonization with the circadian rhythms of a being, night and day. With traditional models, Imam Majid the other day was talking about his grandfather and his day. And his day was, subhanAllah, it was an awesome description of someone in harmony with Allah's creation. When he ate, when he slept, how much he ate, how much he didn't sleep, the afternoon, the nap and all of this stuff. Helping a person become more in tune with their nature, their fitra, in relation to their environment, however crazy it might be, city or wherever it might be, that's a big step. And I've seen people overcome the drives that are in them and that they can't control by just simply doing that. By simply, for example, stopping eating at 7 in the evening and not eating again until the next day. And this goes back to Ibn Sina. I could get more into the detail about that. But the principle in that is that we feed in the day and we digest at night. But digestion, we underestimate and we minimize this reality of being alive in this creation. We minimize it and we say, oh, this is digesting, we're assimilating. No, it's an awesome process. It's an awesome thing. And life is an awesome, immense process and activity that we're engaged in. And these patterns that were in place historically, we underestimate when we've lost them, the implication of individually and collectively.
Jazakallah khair. I had a thought that I wanted to share and ask a question related to that. You know, obviously, if we look at the Western psychological models, like the DSM, for instance, it categorizes disorders, and you have to reach a certain threshold for it to be considered a disorder, right? So you can have a little bit of narcissism or kibr, but until you have this much and it affects your functioning, you're not diagnosed with a disorder. So have you ever treated, especially I want to ask these two people here, ever treated anyone who came to you and said, I may have a small spiritual issue, but it's not a disorder. It's not like they're having a problem in their life, but they're fully functional, but they feel like they have something going on that's bothering them. And how do you treat that? How do you approach that? And how is that different from someone who comes with a disorder?
In my model, I see some مشكلات, problems didn't reach yet pathological value, and it is not yet. So this is why I think when it didn't reach, or it doesn't reach, or I don't know how to say it, the pathological value, so it is just problems, it is just cause and effect, and you work like that. So if it reach, it is maybe you want before not pathological. لو ما كانت المشكلات عندها قيمة مرضية better إنها تعالج زي like counseling حل مشكلات.
Yeah, he said as long as the problem that the person come with is not, a symptoms or a sickness, it could be just having a problem in life in general can be resolved through counseling.
Yeah, it is not. Yes, it is counseling. But for me, this is why I said يعني إحنا نحترم حدود الدواء لأنه ممكن يجيك مريض مشكلته مرة بسيطة ممكن تحتاج حل. لكن إذا كان مشى العكس للسايكاتريست أولاً ممكن يشوف هذه ويقول لي أنت دواء.
She said that
dedication he will derail him.
Said that sometimes people come with problems that not require medication. But if they come for counseling or they come to therapy, maybe the therapy can be able to resolve their problem. But if they go to the psychiatrist, maybe or the doctor who might give them medication. But he said not every problem requires medication, that some of them can be resolved with counseling and therapy.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Khalil, just to add on to before you answer, like in the U.S., we often, even at Khalil Center, get people come in and they say, I don't know what the purpose of my life is, existential crisis, right? Or they might say, like, I have a little bit of problem with my lowering my gaze. So we work on that, right? Does that happen in Pakistan? And if it does, like, how do you approach that?
I think the brother asked the question, this 21st century challenges, and like homosexuality, smartphone addiction, and other issues which the professional needs to focus on it. And particularly the International Association of Islamic Psychology needs to work on these ethical issues to have some robust answer for these. Because I'm also a clinician and I work particularly the gender disorder. Now the people change their sex and boys want female boy. Then these are the challenges. The particular case he mentioned, that is the individual case, he has to look at that in what stage the person is coming. Is he in a pre-contemplation stage or contemplation, and what he wants. And then is he coming for the mental health issues, or he has this characterological problem, personality problem he is coming for. That is, he has to disentangle from the mental health issues and to the characterological issue. And then you can work on it, and he can consult some scholars to have some moderate view how he can give up this habit and what will be the result of the habit. That is one. On smartphone addiction, we recently completed a project that was funded by the Higher Education Commission of Pakistan, 4 million. We took the Dr. Kimberley model for the internet addiction, and then we modified that. We included some physical activity. We included the 5 prayers in that model, and some religious Islamic teaching. And we also focus on the community reinforcement approach, which is mostly popular for those who are, they discourage the drinking behavior and encourage the non-drinking behavior. And we used that in a clinical trial, found very successful. My point is that we Muslim psychologists should be prepared for the 21st century challenges, that we need to do it. Psychotherapy, don't take me wrong, it's an undemocratic type of treatment. It's not for all. You have to choose your client. The suitability, the most suitable, the least suitable client. You have to choose it. Because we cannot generalize this now. We need some journey to have, and then probably at some stage our next generation will be able to treat all the problems.
Okay, any other questions? Sister, right there.
Thank you. I just wonder, we are talking about spirituality like it's treatment or as a way of healing, but at the same time, spirituality can become a disorder itself. So how can we prevent individuals from, it's like the theoretical concepts of spirituality also make us, we can't, how can I say, we can lose our contact with reality. So what do you think about that?
Okay, so if I'm understanding that correctly, you're saying, what if somebody becomes extremely spiritual,
And
almost to a point of disorder. How do you approach that?
Because we are not have any measure or
Right.
causal relationship
Yeah.
During therapy.
Sure.
If we implement this, this therapy methodology, it will give this person a spirituality,
Got
and this person got healing or something.
Understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So you and then the Dr. Murder can answer that.
Just briefly, my understanding is that you said that sometimes spirituality becomes the problem, isn't it? Okay. There are some extreme view in our culture. Some people, they go to Tablighi Jamaat or different organization, and then they think that this is because of, but you can look at the pre-morbid personality. Probably they have this problem before they become spiritual. That is one reason. Second is some people take the thing extremely. They are going to the one extreme or to the other extreme. Then when they take the spirituality in extreme way, and if you look at the teaching of the Quran, that is ummati wast mean moderation. It's not like you are before and after, but this is the moderation. We have we should follow the path which lead to moderation. Then I presume in the therapeutic processes, if you bring it to the moderation level, then that could be treated.
Now, Dr. Murder, just to add on to that, to answer her question and also answer a question that I had in my mind, is it possible to then tell somebody to be less spiritual, like as part of the therapy process? I think it's.
Well, we have to consider there is a spectrum of spiritual behavior. We could have a psychospiritual crisis. We could have psycho-spiritual research. Then we have to offer the person psycho-spiritual counseling. The diagnosis is very important there. If then the basis pathology is also very important. Lately, I had people with psycho-spiritual crisis, and very different states they feel, these people. Kundalini crisis, there's a heat in the body, and hallucinations, optical and visual sense hallucinations, and also with spiritual side of it. Then I examined the person, and I found bipolar personality, bipolar disorder. So with medication, it became better, the bipolar disorder, and the psychospiritual side of it, we treat later.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Any other questions? If the brother here, if you don't mind.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Jihad Masarwe. I am Palestinian living in Germany since 50 years, psychoanalyst, teaching psychoanalysis in the University of Freiburg and the Institute of Psychoanalysis in the same city, supervisor and something else. I was when I began to study, I lost my way and began to be Marxist, because I thought this is the real way, has similarity with the revolution of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I was sure. Then, and this is very important, the patients brought me back to my religion. If they came with disorder, I didn't say anything. I heard at the beginning. One of the most important things to work is what we call it in Germany, Hingabe, to be very near, and to establish a tropical situation between you and between the patient. And then, if he lost his anxiety, he can speak with you about really everything. I have experience of more than 42 years as a psychoanalyst, and I hope and I wish the next time to have the opportunity to talk
Inshallah.
about my experience, because what some of the brothers and sisters said yesterday, that psychoanalysis is nonsense. It is really a very big problem. You are closing the door before you know what is behind this door. For this reason, we have to take everything good, Islam and not
Jazakallah
Islam, and to have a basic for our
Jazakallah
work in the future.
It's a very
Thank you
valid
much.
comment. Jazakallah khair. The question in the back, all the way in the back, there's a sister raising her hand.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Dr. Nashi Khan. I am representing Rifa International University. I have a question pondering in my mind since many years, that when we talk about the modern theoretical models like CBT and neurotransmitters, and we talk about depression and the theories behind, we agree that depression is cause of negative thinking, imbalance of the neurotransmitters. And when we talk about Islam, we take it that when somebody commits suicide, it is haram. So how do we kind of inculcate the Islamic values into the modern theoretical model, which says that depression or suicide is a result of extreme severe depression, and Islamic values says that it is just haram if you kill yourself. So I need a little bit of clarity that how we will kind of merge these two things together and to treat the client.
And
Thank
to make
you.
the question relevant for the panel, maybe how can you practically do it? Let's say somebody is coming to you, or you're working with a family.
That's
There
right.
has been a suicide in the family. How do you combine the notion that suicide at the same time is haram, but it's also a
Exactly.
result of severe
Exactly.
depression?
Exactly.
Yes. It's a hard question. I don't know who wants to take it. I don't want to take it.
Sure, I should have had, but I have a bash. Just one thing is, I think from an Islamic model, we see depression in a more complex way than the DSM-5. That there's, for instance, a state of depression which is probably primarily biological. And in our practice, we would send that to the Hakim for certain. And, yes, like that. Gosh, sort of learning new techniques. And there is a type of depression due to negative thinking. There's also a type of depression which is nafs lawama, in the sense of a state of tawbah, which is not an illness at all, which is gold dust. But you don't find that in DSM-5. We do recognise that there can be a state of depression, probably very strong biochemical, biological underlay to it. And that type of depression is one in which the person has no direct voluntary control. We can, if somebody's in that state, there are certain things we can stay apart from referring for medication. One is that try not to have despair in that state. And to remind people of, Al-Ghazali's rather nice example in The Alchemy of Happiness, when he talks about basically primary causation. There's a reason for everything, including a state of depression. And he infers that one reason that there can be for that is that a person, because they lose taste for the dunya in that state, may come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if the person is so depressed they're outside of responsibility for it, then I'm fairly sure the Sharia states that in that state the pen stops writing. And ultimately we don't know. There's a phrase, I think, by Burton, isn't it, who wrote the Anatomy of Melancholy. It's something like, who knows whether the grace of God has come between the bridge, the river and the jump, between the razor blade and the throat. So we can say, I think for sure, that a person who's in a state really of a psychotic depression is not responsible for their actions. That's clear. And in other states, we don't know, because we don't know what happened in that split second between the cut and the stroke and the cut, or whatever the method of suicide is. And when we're counselling families, we always talk about the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who knows at which last fraction of a point that mercy intervened.
Okay, thank you.
So the timekeeper keeps walking up, and I don't want to, make her too tired. So I think there's a quick comment. So Hakeem, 30 seconds, and then Dr. Khalil.
I'll just add a quick comment to the depression and the suicide. I mean, the fact of the matter is that in the developed countries, my country in the UK and these places, the leading cause of death from 14 years old to 20 years old is suicide. And that is not a simple fact. That is a serious reality that we must look at. And as Muslims and therapists with the intention of healing, we need to look at a broad enough picture to understand what's taking place there, not just at that moment between the razor and the cut. That's a very important place. But we need, and I personally believe, I think it's pretty clear, and we have people here who understand family systems therapy. My wife works with that. When a teenager is suicidal, they don't counsel or do therapy with the teenager. They do it with the family. Years ago, Ronald Lang, he wrote a book called Schizophrenia in the Family. And he talked about that dynamic. And I've seen this for years in action, how the family dynamic, one person in his family is the identified patient, but in fact, that other person is the one that's creating the difficulty. So we have to be broad enough, and we have to be able to, there's a term which is called simultagnosia. Does anybody know that term? It's a pretty unusual, it means simultagnosia. It's the inability to see the components as part of a whole. And as Muslims with the belief in Tawheed, we want to reflect wholeness and health as wholeness and the unity of things and the interaction of many things. So we want to be able to look broadly enough and to see, back to what I said about the lifestyle, we've got to repair the lifestyle that we're living, or it will not get better. And I'll just add to it very quickly that really the tsunami that has come, that we must face, is this one. And we have not seen the results of that yet. It's coming. We're seeing it, but there's more unless we change it. So, inshallah, Allah may.
Okay, in response to Dr. Nashi Khan's question, we recently studied and published the psychological autopsies of those who committed suicide in the north part of Pakistan. As far as, like she said, that suicide is prohibited in Islam. As a primary prevention, this message should be spread in the community, but it is not. Like the purpose of life, what is life, how you can love the life. The importance of life. This is not spreading in the society, not prevailing in the society. As a primary prevention, this is essential. But as a secondary prevention, when there is, Rashid Skinner and Dr. Hakeem has mentioned, when there is some mental health issues, then the case should be look at individually. There are some cultural pattern as well. Like Chatral is a remote area in the north part, very beautiful area, and there is mostly the girls, they jump into the river, and that is the river become they called in Urdu Khuni river, like the blood of the blood in the river. Then that is a different phenomena. The pesticides, which is easily available in the market, and even the children can go and they can buy. There are some other issues as well related to suicide. But the mental health issues would be, my point is that look individually.
Jazakallah khair. We want to thank everybody here. Please give them a round of applause. If you have any questions, please see them afterwards, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.